Alright, welcome back. We've got another Talking Magic episode. I've got the Grimace here with me, and we're going to go over the new player experience and what it's like. Now, he's been playing Magic back in the day when we were like kids and stuff, like physical Magic, but I only recently got him to start playing Arena maybe a month or two ago, and I'm curious as to what the new player experience will be like. So I've got him here, but before we get into it, if you could hit that subscribe button for me, small act from you, big deal for me, so just hit that thing. And as always, don't be a bitch, watch to the end. That's some beta shit. If you just click out of the video, that's some nonsense, don't do it. But let's go ahead and ask Grimace some questions about it. So we're going to start off with the most simplest. How is your experience thus far?
Thus far? Shoot. It's I don't really know how to say it without being vulgar. Because you constantly, like, it's a repeated thing of going up against the same deck every time almost. Like, very rarely will you see a variation of just somebody playing something different. Acquiring cards is a lot different so far.
Well, that brings us to another good question. I know you only have one, like, I guess, competitive deck, but when it comes to wild cards and things like that, how do you feel making, or how easy do you feel it is to make new decks?
Honestly, it's after seeing everything, what I've had to go through, then how you go about making decks and everything. It ain't easy at all. Like, even though they're giving you wild cards to make whatever cards you want, which is that's neat in itself. But overall, you still need so many of them, and that there's only one real way to get it for free to play is painful.
And the other thing too is, with now that Standard's not rotating for a year, there's a bunch of sets of cards you need from. So I imagine, how do you feel about making decks now that we have so many sets out?
With it like that, it definitely hurts. Like again, it hurts because whatever cards would have been taken out of rotation, they're still there now, but I'm not able to acquire any wild cards that I might need to either get into, like, just making other decks. Really, it kind of cuts my dick off on that one.
Yeah, I mean, even where I'm at, I've spent a little bit of change on the game, and I still find myself missing a lot of cards to play with, simply because when I started playing, I think it was New Dominaria had just come out, and so all the sets before that I didn't have a big collection of, and with how often sets come out, trying to keep up with them is a very expensive thing. But as far as the wild cards go, I think the rate that they do drop is pretty decent for the rares, and I think the mythics could possibly be bumped a little. Like, I don't remember the last time I even got a mythic wild card at this point, but that would be super nice. And the amount of gold that you can make a day,
that definitely kills you.
I mean, it's enough to get like a pack a day, I guess, if you're just starting, which I guess is an interesting thing for a newer player, because I know a lot of people like to hoard the gold, but I feel that hoarding gold would maybe hurt you more for making decks. But I have heard people say that spending your gold on events tend to be a better prospect. Now, I've kind of tested this out myself, like with drafts using gold, and to be honest, the amount of gold that I spent for the cards that I got was not good. Yeah, I think I would have done better just spending like the 20 grand of gold on sets that I need, because doing like the drafts or the events, I didn't get a bang for my buck, if you will. But I know some people believe it is, and do what you want to do is the bottom line there. But I'd like to ask you, as a newer player, how do you spend your gold and the free gems you get every so often?
So far, everything that I've done has been towards packs that'll get me to that, after you buy the 10 and you get that gold pack.
The gold pack.
Right, that's what I end up putting my gold towards, instead of sets that I may actually need or want to do a deck, just because I'm getting the wild card out of it instead.
Yeah, I think the gold pack, which is a fairly new addition to the game, I think is really good, especially for newer players. So you get a bunch of rares from sets you've probably not invested in, and I think that's a good addition. But I think being forced to have to buy like the most brand new of the sets to fill it up is
kind of busted in its own.
Yeah, I don't really like that. I get that they want to try and get people onto the new sets, but to be honest with you, you'll get people like me. I have 99% of March of the Machines, Brothers War, and the Phyrexian All Will Be One. I have 99% of the card collection of those. So being forced to have to buy those sets for that gold pack kind of sucks for me, because I don't want to spend the gold to get that gold pack for a bunch of cards I'm not going to use. Well, not really use, because like I already have the rares and the mythics from those sets, so they'll just give me like
double up, triple up.
No, I already have the 4 of them.
Okay.
But they'll give you gems instead. But I think it's like 20 gems or something. Like, it's some insignificant bullshit.
Per card or per pack?
Per rare.
Oh, get out of here.
Yeah, because if you already have them, like the commons and uncommons, you can get hundreds of those, but you can only have the 4 play sets. But once you get 4 of a rare, it's not going to show up in the pack anymore. Okay. It'll be gems instead. But the gems don't really mean much to me, that I don't want to spend on those packs, when I could be like, well, I still need like such and such card from New Capenna. I'd rather use those coins to go for cards that I might actually need and don't have a almost full set of, instead of being forced to have to do. I know we have Aftermath, which is nice, but pre-Aftermath, being forced to have to buy March of the Machines was absolutely painful, I won't lie. But
especially that they threw in that one card that you can only play in Historic. Like, that one, what was the point in that? We're going to give you this pack here, and then we're going to throw in a card that you can't use with this fucking set.
Well, I think it does one of two things. Firstly, as a glass half full kind of guy, I believe that they're trying to get newer players like you, or people like me who don't give two craps about Historic, some Historic cards to kind of get into it. Okay. But the glass half full guy in me is like, well, that's just fluffing the set and taking away, so that way you have to spend more to get the actual complete set. And even when I did spend on March of the Machines, I was getting play sets of those Historic cards way before I even got play sets of the actual set itself. And that drove me crazy, because I was like, I have no real desire to get into Historic. That's a whole nother money pit that I'm like, I'll stick with Standard. And even moving into Brawl a little bit, I've been kind of enjoying it. It's different. Okay. And my biggest frustration, which what you mentioned in the beginning, was seeing the same decks over and over and over, and that after a few months just completely makes the game boring to me. Yeah. And as I want to make content for Magic, I have to find ways to switch it up. And it's just been painful. It's like, no joke, man. I'll play maybe 10 matches, and 5 or 6 of them are freaking 8 mono red. Every single day it's like that. And it just makes the game not fun. And
it has been pretty amusing, you being able to call it out play by play. Like, that was amusing as hell.
I've played too much Magic. I mean, don't get me wrong. I might talk some mad trash about it, but I do enjoy Magic, as most of us do. It's mainly, I guess, people's mentality on the decks that they do play. Now, as a bottom line, as I've said before, Magic is about fun. Play the decks you love to play. Even if it is 8 mono red, I get it. If you're having fun, that's fine. But, man, I would just love to see some variation. Like, even when I play in ranked, I'm expecting, to fight the same decks over and over. But every time I go into ranked, I'm always pleasantly surprised. Sure, I get, like, the billions of, 8 mono reds, but in between, I'll never see, like, I won't see 2 soldier decks, or I won't see 2 Atraxa decks, I'll see once, well, I guess the fuckboy enchantments one's getting pretty frequent too, but
yeah, I saw a few of them coming into ranked again. It's
unfortunately, it's a damn good deck. It really is effective. I absolutely hate it. It's boring to play against because they're like, I'm just gonna ossification infinitely. This is so much fun. I'm like, dude, get out of here. I'm not doing this shit. Take your free win. I don't care. I'm not doing this. It's just not fun. Especially if you get like a bad draw or, you mulligan twice, but they still give you trash. Which leads us to the next question. Or not really question, but the goddamn shuffler. How do you feel about him or her?
Whatever the fuck it is, it needs to go and fucking choke itself. Like, seriously. Out of the games, out of the past 3 games, or fucking, what was it, yesterday, the past 3 games that we did, all my fucking land that came out, 4. Not anymore, not any less, 4 for about 10 rounds. At least. And then they wanted to start giving me 1, 2 here and there. And I'm fucking over it. It's fucking, like, what... It leaves me speechless, honestly. Like, it's fucking... I seriously think they just need to fucking go and rework it. I know they probably said they fucking fixed it or did whatever the fuck, but no. No, they haven't.
Well, as far as the land goes, when I was talking to Shifty last Monday, he was talking about, changing up your land types. Like, you run like 4 planes of this set and then 4 planes of that set to maybe help. Now, I haven't tried it yet for myself. It's mainly I stick to a bunch of like dual lands, tri-lands, which sadly is almost unattainable for you as a newer player because that's like a billion freaking wild cards, you just can't afford to spend,
And I find I end up using the ones that they come into play tapped, but you gain 1 in life. But it looks like I have 15 different types of mana out there. Like, even though I'm only playing a 2-color deck, I'll end up using them as opposed to some things every now and then.
Which is a piece of advice I would give to newer players, is those dual lands and those tri-lands are some of the first things you should maybe consider wild carding after you've built a competitive deck. And if you're new to Magic, honestly, just going and checking out a couple of meta decks, picking one that you think you would enjoy playing, wildcarding that up, but then using your others to start building your collection of tap lands and tri-lands would be very helpful. And, chicken, you need to settle down. But the lands are so important in this game. Like, when I first started playing Arena, I should say, I only did the ones for decks that I played. Because when I started, I played off of what I used to play physically. I was a big Rakdos player. I love the combination of it, the sacrificing and the exploding and stuff. Like, I just love those colors mixed together. Now I'm starting to really like Selesnya, but I stuck with what I knew, and I had a lot of the tap lands, and I even did the tri-lands for Grixis. I went ahead and just wild-carded them, because I knew that I'd probably make other variations or new style Rakdos decks. And after that, I was starting to able to get, rack up the wins, get all my dailies, and build up packs, and basically catch up before I actually started putting, like, real money into the game. Mm-hmm. But by the time I put real money into the game, I had all the lands completely wildcarded so I could focus on the actual decks.
Okay.
So
and having the dual lands, it actually helps out a whole hell of a lot with them dual lands.
The dual tap and the dual fast lands.
Yeah. Because the shuffler, once again, they're going to try and shove their fist up to their elbow. Like right on up there on your land drawing.
Which is weird because sometimes I see people will get 4 of like one specific card in their hand. And like, you know, by turn 3 they've played 4 of the same card. And it's like, for as much physical Magic as I've played, I've never seen that happen.
Ever.
No.
Not once, not now, not ever. Everybody and their mother knows this. It's unreal. I seriously don't understand like how they come across their possibilities that on your first hand, before you even have a chance to mulligan or whatever the fuck it is, you've already got 3 1 card. You've already got 4 1 card. It's not just that. They'll do it with multiple cards. Like,
yeah. So, what? Because I know you've been playing a little bit of it. What has been your experience with the actual ranked, the ladder?
It becomes painful sometimes just because all I see is poison. Like, a lot of it is just, it was 90% poison in the start of it all. I personally, I can't stand it just because you couldn't come up with a deck to actually take somebody out. So you're going to go to where you only put 10 counters on somebody and they're gone.
Yeah, I kind of see it as like a half deck like that too. But unfortunately, they are very effective sometimes. Granted, I've never had problems with them. Yeah. But I could see how they could become an issue.
That's a lot of the time too, because it's the whole wild card deal. I only play with cards that I've been given out of the deck so far. So it's going through and trying to find other cards that I don't have to add into decks becomes somewhat of an issue, but not really, just because I need to sit there and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and try and put together the different cards in my head, or try and write them down maybe, but
most people don't do that, man. They just go download a deck.
Okay.
That's my issue with the game, but
alright, I like to try and have a little bit of thought into it.
No. You can't have fun in this game.
Are you kidding me?
No, this game's not about fun. People won't let you have fun.
Apparently, because I'm fighting one level at a time, and it's the same level every fucking time, regardless if I beat it or not. Like, but another thing about that whole rank deal is the people who just sit there and let it time out. I get tired of it to a point, because they're gonna have to go through 3 timers before it becomes my turn.
It depends on how many they've built up, but I've seen a lot of people rope too. But when people try to rope me, I just let it go. And if they do that little thing where they'll like wait to the last second, the last rope to play, then I'll go and I'll let mine rope all the way to the end and do the same thing back. Cause I'm like, all right, you want to waste my time? You could do it back. But it seems like pointless, because all it does is waste theirs and ours. But for sometimes when people do that, they are legitly thinking and trying to put the puzzle together. Now, I'm not saying there ain't trolls out there that do that, or little babies that are like, haha, I downloaded this deck, I'm supposed to win, but I just got shit on, so I'm gonna rope you now. There are those people. Okay. But when I come in ranked, I legit, that's the one time where I kind of don't really care about the roping, simply because I'm like, they're probably thinking hard, especially if you have them in a lethal situation where if they don't make a move now, then they're done.
Well, I can give it to the ones that look like they actually have some kind of a thought process going. Like, you can see them when they're they're browsing over their cards, or it looks like they're fucking looking over their cards, kind of a deal. Those ones, sure, cool. I mean, at least you're showing that you're there fucking trying to do something. But the ones that you just see a blank, it's like a blank screen. Like, there's no highlighting of the cards, no none.
Yeah, they're just roping the rope at that point.
Yeah, and I'll sit there and I'll go, okay, your turn, your turn, your turn, your turn, your turn. Come on, let's go.
I actually had an interesting rope the other day where I was playing Rakdos Obnixilis in ranked, and the first thing I did was play a Mountain and a Voltarian Epicure, and the guy just instantly roped me. And I think he thought that I was playing, Ape Mono Red, which I never do and never will. And I felt bad because I was like, oh man, if you would have just like took your turn, you would have seen that this wasn't, mono red. But I get things like that every so often. But at that point, I still can't blame them because I'm like, yeah, nobody likes 8 mono red. Nobody. So, like, I can't even blame them. But I'm still like, oh, man, if you would have played one turn, we could have had a good match,
Oh, yeah. And then there's the times where it's you got a dual color deck, but they're only giving you 1 mana of a type. And the cards for the other type.
Well, that's also why I recommend the dual lands. Yeah, the good ones, not like the ones that are like, give you 1 life. Like that's garbage. No.
Yeah, no, because you're already cutting your dick off. It's being back 1 turn without being able to play something.
Yeah, it's too slow. So, yeah, that's why those are important. I think that's why you're going to have those issues when you do play. But I think the one competitive deck you have is...
the Obliterator one.
Yeah, the Obliterator. So you should have all the... dual lands to make it run, but now trying to make a new deck, it's like, okay, now I'm going to have to devote like 6, maybe 8 wild cards just to dual lands or pain lands alone.
Yeah.
Because I think while a lot of people don't like pain lands, I think they're very important.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially if you have a way to get your life back, or if it comes down to...
Most of the time, I don't care about getting a life back.
Well, no, I know that it comes down, if you're really scared about getting your life back, then you're probably going to have some way to get it back anyway. Or if you just really don't care, because you know that your deck is going to output the damage far quicker.
Well, again, that doesn't really much matter, because the arena's meta is straight aggro. So, there's no reason to even try and get life back with pain lands, because you should already have them beat by the time it even matters.
Okay.
So, most people are like, oh, I gotta win turn 4 or 5, kind of a thing. So, most decks are designed to kind of get that close, But it's just, it doesn't really much matter. I think people think too much about the pain lands. I like them because they don't come in tapped, and I'm like, okay, 1 damage, who cares?
Yeah.
You're going to race them anyway, so it doesn't much matter to me.
Yeah.
Now, I know there might be some decks where it might matter, but in this one it doesn't, so I do enjoy them. So you're going to have to get the lands first. But trying to figure out what decks to build is slightly frustrating, simply because you can't you can't really bring too much of an original idea without getting shit on by the tried and true meta decks that's like, okay, I'm going to play 5 matches, great, all the same decks, not super annoying at all and super boring.
Bullshit, I've seen you do it several times. Now, it may be like the deck straight designed just to piss the other fucking party off, but, I mean...
I try to do that, but it's not really like that.
Okay. That's, I don't care. I still find it funny, though. Alright, y'all want to go through? You want to play this thing? You want to counter? You want to do this? Alright, I got something for you. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that one.
Well, that's the thing, too, is mono blue doesn't really annoy me too much, because I find that it's still easy to get around mono blue. Maybe a few years ago, mono blue would have been crazy awesome, but now there's just so, with reanimation, and I don't know, mono blue ain't nothing. I kind of feel bad for the dudes that do play it, but...
Well, sometimes they just gotta cry yourself to sleep at night.
But, again, if you just play one deck, it's on you then. I don't feel bad for you. So you make several decks, Because that's another thing I found out, too, is when I've been playing ranked, or even when I go into casual, I'll play a particular deck that I like, or, one I'm testing out, and, the first 3 matches will go really smoothly. But then after that 3rd match, it's all your opponent's always going to have a perfect hand, you're going to get a trash hand, and you're going to lose 4 or 5 games in a row or whatever. But if you switch decks, you go back into this... Yeah, you start going back into this different, I guess, algorithm, and you fight a bunch of... you don't see the same bullshit. You'll see... you'll have much... Your hand will be better. You won't get flooded out as often, and I think the game is not designed for that one deck for 10 matches in a row. Or at least it's just like, do I know for certain? No. These are just observations when I'm playing the game that I have noticed.
I know there was one night I went in trying to do ranked, and it started off from the very beginning. It was just nothing but shit. It was just fucking a straight shit show, and the motherfuckers glazed me like a donut. It's pretty painful.
Well, like I said, a lot of the meta decks out there are very rough to deal with, and that I think that's a big reason why people just download the deck and play. So like, oh yeah, this deck just instant wins, and I have to win to have fun. But
if you can't come up with something that's yours originally, or at least having some kind of a thought into it, then hey, I did that. That's my win, not somebody else's. Right?
On the opposite end of that, though, how are you going to do that? You specifically.
Yeah, no, I know. It comes up with a lot of fucking thought process, but since I only have the mobile version and having to scroll through a line of reading every single card, like that's where. And
I think we're like 8 or 9 sets in standard right now. That's a lot of cards to go through. Now I've been playing a lot, so like I'm pretty used to what the cards are, what they do, what they say, all that. So it's not hard for me to kind of be like, oh, okay, let's just toss these together and see what happens,
Yeah.
Because I'm a bigger fan of original decks. Like, if you play meta decks and you just downloaded it, which clearly you did because you didn't make that deck, I assure you, that's just boring, and I don't see how that's fun. But, again, people like, oh, if I win, I have fun, kind of that instant gratification nonsense. Because even, like, I find that people who play these meta decks, and you know who I'm talking about, every time I play them, as soon as I get the upper hand, they wrote. Because they're like, oh no, I'm not supposed to lose. This deck's supposed to win every time. But I assure you, there is no deck to rule them all, and you will not win every single match. That is not possible.
No, you'd have to get stupid lucky in a match of just somebody not even paying attention kind of a deal.
It's not even about luck. It's just not going to happen. The algorithm of this game will not allow it.
Very true.
But honestly, the one thing that I think people don't realize is when I'm making these decks, I learn so much more from a loss than I do from just rolling over somebody.
True. It's either play lines or just fucking like what you need to change out, or what is it?
Yeah. But I also look at like these meta decks, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, but if you switched out these cards with these cards, that deck would be so much better. But I don't want to say it because I don't want to see that garbage continue.
True.
I want to see people come up with something new, something fun, but really it's just freaking soldiers, enchantments, mono red, Esper Legends. Like, god damn, am I so sick of seeing that every single day. It's like, Jesus, dude, try something freaking different. I actually don't see a lot of poison decks, I'll be honest with you, but
that Yurako deck, like that one, that thing is just retarded.
It's a fun deck, but the problem is it's jank, and most people don't like jank like I do.
Okay.
I want my decks to be ridiculous,
That one does it.
So, try to have a little bit of fun. It's hard. I do have a hard time trying to have fun on this game, but that's because of other people. It's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna play this cool deck, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, your first match is mono black.
Great.
What happens? Well, the first 4 turns is kill spell, kill spell, kill spell, kill spell, Liliana, and you're like, Jesus. Can your play lines be any more bland and boring? Good. Let the cards carry you harder. You don't have to have a game plan with some of these decks.
No, I could seriously put my mom with one of these decks. She ain't never played the game, and she'd be able to take some wins.
It's why I really hate soldiers and enchantment decks, is because there's no thought to it. It's just like you could blindfold and just be like, haha, I'm playing cards, I'm win, haha. There's no like really interesting fun combos to it. It's just, haha, I ossify everything you have, I win. Stupid. It's just stupid. And that's not really even hard to do, because like all these good creatures, for these decks are all like 3 mana or less, so you're doing it like turn 3, and you're like, oh, great.
Well, that's another thing too I found.
And if you don't have the answer, you lose.
Well, that's another thing too. Like a lot of the more recent decks I've tried to put together, as garbage as they are, I made it around to where I wasn't paying any more than maybe 3 mana per a card because I knew I was going to get royally. I was just gonna, like, they were going to take me to the Browns on mana, no matter what it was. I needed to be able to play things on them turns. It's just because. So damn near everything in my deck would be fucking 3 or less, no matter what.
Well, I mean, like I said, the meta is aggro, so it's not bad. But like even with when it's Harley, I used to see a lot of Atali decks, but I don't really see them as often because as a reanimator with like a Traxa, usually they combo with that. They usually get crapped on by like Flesh Gorgers or even what they call it, Graveyard Trespassers. Just screw those decks all up. Or if you just aggro it, they're not going to have enough time to even play the Atali. Like, I find Atali decks boring to play against because they don't really do anything for a while. And by the time they do, I've already won.
So what's Atali do then?
Atali's the red dinosaur, the big guy. He's like 7 mana. And when he comes into play, both you and the opponent will discard or exile cards from the top of your library until it's a permanent, and then you can play both of them for free.
That sounds like garbage.
It's actually really good, but 4 mana depopulate, it's all useless. You know what I mean? Like, that's the other thing too, is everything is really easy to deal with. Like, really easy.
Yeah. As long as you make, like, well, if you're coming into, if you have an idea about what you're going to be coming up against when you go and click the button, it's there have been times where I knew I shouldn't have played this fucking deck. Fuck me.
Well, what I've noticed is, like, with the Atali deck, the win cons are usually just Atali and Atraxa, and they're both very easy to deal with.
That's it?
Yeah, that's usually their win cons. And they get it out. Most people will just quit out because they're like, oh, I can't beat this. But this is why I always stress. One, field wipes. That will trash that in a heartbeat. Like, the new Sunfall one's amazing. That exiles them. So then it's like, okay, now you're not reanimating shit. It's gone, bro. Well, waste a turn.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, well, if they would have just put in that, what was that card? It's a red card. But you can sack it, give your creatures haste. If you put that in that deck and be able to actually swing with them, it'd be more effective. But that's just not what they use it for.
Oh, God.
Which is okay, because when it first came out, there wasn't much. It was very new, so people didn't really know how to deal with it. But now that I've played these decks like a million times, they're so easy to get around. But when you play things like, 8 mono red, you're going to have to burn them down fast. Otherwise, once they get that out, you're dead. You're not going to be able to do much about it.
Yeah.
So, but
that's what I like about that double strike deck. I don't care how many people fucking hate that shit. You even fucking told me about it. That's when I went through and started trying to make them.
It's a nasty it's a nasty deck. It really is.
A lot of people, they don't see it coming. Oh, okay, it's a 1/1 that's gonna hit me for 2.
They'll let it go through or just not block.
And all of a sudden, I'm hitting them for 12 on the second, third round. All of a sudden, it's
good. But let's go ahead and wrap this up with one final question. Would you recommend Arena to somebody to play? I mean, I got you to play it.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess I would. But
and it did take me a little bit to actually be able to get a hold of it. Partly just because I didn't have a phone that was able to run it.
But as a new player, now that you know the new player experience, would you recommend this to somebody?
I would heavily stress patience. Like, beyond all reasoning, like, patience.
It's free to play.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because if you got money to spend on it, then anything's possible, really. But coming down to it, if you're free to play, patience, period. Like, because it's going to be a very slow process. And like you were saying earlier, it's find that one deck that you can take into ranked or that you're going to have for your top deck to fight whatever the fuck with. and then go about building whatever you want on the side, because it's going to be a long time. It's just acquiring your mythic and rare wild cards. They hand out the commons and uncommons pretty generously, more or less, but yeah.
So yeah, simple stuff, but
it just comes down to like patience, man, because you're gonna be there for a while.
Yeah, it's not easy, but I think to iterate that point is building that one, I guess, quote unquote meta deck to help get you the wins is one of the first things you should kind of focus on. Now, again, a lot of people recommend spending your coins on events.
No.
Do you? I don't think it's worth it, but...
No, with the...
Because they're like, well, what if you get 7 wins? I spent money on this game and I've played tons of events, and I've never gotten fucking 7 wins. Mm-hmm. Every pack I get in, like, drafts always trash. Everything, like, it's always so bad, and I'll always come up against rare spammers, and, like, there's no... It's so ridiculous to do, but...
Well, like, out of the times that I have tried to go into the draft or whatever, I've only spent the tokens that they give you initially when you join the game. And every time I got shat on. Like, there was nothing worthwhile out of it that made me want to say, oh, okay, here, I'm going to save up 10 grand. Now I'm going to go fucking waste it on this.
Well, this is the point that I think a lot of these people who recommend that, they've all spent a lot of money on the game and they know the cards, but they don't realize that people that are just starting Magic do not know the cards. So spending your money or your coins on drafting is kind of a dumb move because you don't know what you're doing. Unless, maybe you look up a guide for, how to draft and what to, look for and that kind of nonsense. But even then, it's still a gamble. Now, again, do you, if that's where you think the best is, go ahead. There's nothing wrong with it. Have your fun. I just would never recommend them because for almost a year now, I've been playing events and they've all been trash. I mean, I had a good one, which I still got to edit and post up with Crimson Vow. I did that one the other day, but I only went 3-3, and I expected to go 0-3 because 1, I didn't know anything about Crimson Draft, and 2, I ain't a bitch. I didn't look up drafting, things for it. I didn't care. I was like, whatever. I just want to try and play some Crimson Vow, do something different, have a little fun, and in a way, I did have fun. But my losses came down to my opponents either 1, rare spamming the hell out of me, or 2, they just got extremely broken rare that you just couldn't deal with, or you just didn't get the draw to deal with, because I had the kill spells, but they were like, they're all at the bottom, you're dead. I'm like, oh, cool, that was a fun game, glad I played. But...
I have 4 of this card, and you mean to tell me out of 58 of them, I ain't got it yet?
Well, because even when I did the draft, all the packs that came to me from other players that opened never had a rare in it. And the packs that I opened that had rares in them were straight garbage. Granted, yeah. I did take them, but I didn't even use them in the deck because they were garbage. And for me, it wasn't an isolated incident. Every draft I played is like that. I always get trash rares. And then I go in, they're like, oh, guess what? Somehow I drafted 2 Ellis Norns. You lose, asshole. And I'm like, oh, that was fun, balanced. Which brings me to the idea of how I get it from a gameplay point, but playing drafts on here is not like a real draft. You're not playing against the people that you draft with.
Yeah.
So what the hell is that? That's not a draft.
Makes you wonder if you're even actually playing against other people. Then.
No, you are.
Like legit?
Yeah. Like I've never fought a bot on this.
Okay. All right.
But it's just, I don't know. I think the drafts are just a waste. But I had free tokens, so I did the Crimson Vow for free. I would never put coins or gems into a draft. No way.
Yeah. Unless you're like a hardcore gambler, there ain't no point in doing the fucking gem part of it because while you look at the rewards, the rewards for it is like, dude, I could do that. Wait. Well, after last time,
well,
let's roll them dice.
The rewards were still good for me in the Crimson Vow. I ended up making 1,000 gems and a couple packs.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But I did it for free. I didn't pay into it. I had a free draft token, so it was all straight, good rewards. That's why I didn't mind doing it. and I didn't really care how far or how, you know, little I got, simply because whatever I got was just free, you know.
Yeah.
And I still have another draft token, but I'll probably use that on another set. But okay. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. I think there's enough in there for newer players to kind of get an idea of the experience, but don't be discouraged. The game is fun.
Yeah.
And if you've watched this far, thank you. Appreciate that. You're one of the real ones. Definitely a legend, and I'm glad to have you this long. But with all that out of the way, I will definitely catch you guys in the next one.
Yeah, man.
Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because subscribe